Hello, everyone. Just real quick, this is my assistant for the day, Nando. Nando's been working with me on my passion, which is this side project, which is a place called Game Workshop. So my background in tech, I work for Hewlett Packard. That's my day job. That's kind of my credentials and where I do most of my stuff. But this is and I've spoken here at Code RGB several times, and they've been kind of boring and ultra technical, and we've talked about code and cloud and healing and development platform, and that's awesome. It's great stuff, and I think I've seen some of the faces in here there before. But today we're going to talk about video games and arcades. But kind of the mesh of where my experience in the IT background and my passion for making kind of coincided with that, and how that helped or driv or went. So I'm just going to change the. Sorry, I got to change to the computer. Yeah, there we go. You can drive. So the place I'm talking about is a game workshop, and this is a place that I recently opened. It's on 10th Street and across from Hibachi Grill, kind of close to IHOP. It's just a little bit before you get to IHOP. Huh? Yeah, between Barnes & Nobles and IHOP. It's called the Professional Plaza. Find it on Google Maps. Oh my God, just getting something on Google Maps is kind of ridiculous. It's too funny. Basically, there was a friend, two individuals that had a small. They started in a garage. Raphael had the back of his garage. He used to open it, and he had these big display cases and tons of video games and Nintendo games and Sega games and stuff like that. I used to go over there all the time to buy stuff for myself. And he moved. What's going on? Where's the feedback coming from? I got you. Okay. So sorry about that, guys. So as I became a customer of his and started talking about, I built a couple of arcade cabinets myself. In the making, we'll talk about it in a second, but this joystick here was one of probably the second or third joystick that I built in my garage. Just because my grandfather was a construction maker. A lot of Murphys in my family were in construction. My grandfather used to be a famous Boyer Fletcher, and he would make these beautiful wood bows out of rosewood and oak and cherry, and so we had I had a lot of antique woodworking tools, and my uncles who had worked with him had all gained construction experience and built houses and stuff like that. So one day I was come from a deep video game background, and I asked my uncle, I was like, hey, I want to build a joystick. I want to build an arcade box, or I want to build a joystick, and I asked for his help, and he helped me get a couple of the initial prototypes, and then this is kind of the first really good one I made. The rest of them I wouldn't bring to a public presentation. They look pretty horrific as black plywood, and they're all splintered up and whatnot. So I really enjoyed working with the technicality of that, and as I grew, here was the second generation of sticks that I built, and we'll plug it in here, and I'll show you what's really cool about this one in a second. And then we built. Go to the next slide. I'll pause on that, and I'll talk about. We decided we were going to open an arcade between Raphael and myself, and so I had about 3 arcade cabinets that I had in my possession, but we obviously needed a lot more than that. So I headed up to Dallas to an arcade auction that they have. They have every 3 or 4 months they have an auction in Dallas, and so I said, I'm going to take a couple $1,000s. I'm going to go up to this arcade auction. I'm going to grab a couple more arcade cabinets in really bad condition, and just slowly over time we'll get them working. So if you go to that picture, no, the one before that, yeah, this is totally empty, and this is a Big Buck Hunter, which is a terrible game. But I liked it because I could see the potential of it in it's the right size. It's got a good platform. I could convert that control panel. So being that as an auctioneer and as a maker, and I had the ability to make modifications to the cabinet, I could buy things, and that was super cheap. That was like $25 when I bought it at auction. But I could utilize it a lot better than someone who didn't have construction or making ability. All right, hit the next slide. So you saw the walls in the last picture. They were red. The first thing we did was we blacked out the walls because I'd always loved that. Anyone who's seen Tron in here? Tron, who loved that movie, Tron? Because I absolutely love that movie. The black lights and the blue lines and the other kind of stuff or what. So we decided that early on that we wanted to have the entire back of the arcade UV blacklit. Now I really wanted the black light, Skateland, Fantasyland kind of carpet on the bottom. As costs started to add up, that became very low on the priority pool. But initially, I hired an artist to come in, an airbrush artist. His name is Trip, and he only has one name. Don't ask him what else. It's like Madonna. But this is actually a base coat that one of the first pieces that he did. This is my favorite X-Men Archangel. And this was the base coat as he was putting in. And now the artwork is getting to a really crazy state, and it's purple and blue and UV reactive and looks fantastic. You're going to have to come by the shop to see it finished because it escapes description. Hit the next slide. This was the load that we brought back from my initial arcade auction. I went with my son and a friend that I grabbed and said, hey, I need help getting some stuff down. And the games that I bought were just really terrible because I had a $2,000 budget to buy about 11 or 12 arcade cabinets to do the thing. So a lot of stuff I was using, I planned to convert. So this is a Simpsons Bowling. This is a Big Buck Hunter. I think I had 2 Maximum Force cabinets. I had a Rush San Francisco. I bought this claw machine right here for like $5. It's super awesome. It has neon lights in it. Hit the next one. And really, so we took that load of cabinets and we turned it into an actually pretty decent lineup. So we have Simpsons I bought original. It just needed a lot of repair. But we have Neo Geo. This is a multi-Neo Geo, so it plays all the Neo Geo games in the library. We converted we have a Marvel vs. Capcom. The community that I'm targeting is a lot of the 90s eras, because there's a bunch of different eras in arcades. There's classics, which is your 70s, 80s versions. Pong, Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Galaga, Joust, Kangaroo. We will have those games, absolutely, but my first focus was on the 90 series. And this just had to, when I was a kid, my uncle passed away when I was 17 years old. His name was Kevin Murphy. He used to take me to arcades when I would get, all A's and honor rolls and stuff like that in the school. And the place, does anyone here remember Fun Time Pizza? So you'd be old enough, and nobody else? Mr. Funds, Nickelodeons, there was Mr. Funds was in Sherryland. So a lot of the games that I played in that youth that I went to an arcade with my Uncle Kevin were from those eras. And Simpsons was at Mr. Funds. There was a couple other ones, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Street Fighter II, a few other games. But the ones that I remember, Captain America and the Avengers, which I'm trying to find. What's that? Is it a USA Cruising USA. Also a 90 series. I used to play that with my cousin. So when I started to decide the games that I was going to convert and buy and approach was a lot of stuff that was just special to nostalgic to me. Now, we are, Yeah. Oh, this is your beer? Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. I'll just go ahead and drink this one then. Oh, here's my beer. There we go. Thank you. So a lot of this stuff was what was meaningful to me. Next slide. And that's kind of what we've been doing. So here you can kind of see some of the more airbrush art that's come in as our artist Trip has been working. We have a Korean sun that comes from the Street Fighter II stage for E Honda. We have an Akuma and a Guile, and there's a big, dramatic overlay. We actually have some cool stuff. This box right here was originally when I bought it at auction, it was Maximum Force. Huh? Oh. No, it was Maximum Force. We put Solage in it first, but it was Maximum Force. It was a shooter cabinet. It had 2 guns in it. We took this is really fun because we took the control panel off, and it was Killer Instinct, which is a very popular game. Not very popular when it initially came out. It didn't make a lot of money in arcades. It was kind of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Rocky Horror Picture Show. It became popular much later after it was released. So the arcade that originally owned it had turned it into a Maximum Force. So we gutted it. We pad hacked a couple Xbox One controllers. We put in some LED buttons and an Xbox One. Now it plays the new generation Killer Instinct, and it's a lot of fun. It's a fun cabinet to play on. Next slide. Some other stuff. This is an example of when we originally bought this cabinet. This a customer brought to us, and the control panel had been severely water damaged. I don't know if they'd had a leak in the roof or something had happened. The monitor was broken. We had the monitor fixed. The control panel had just been totally destroyed. So we built one fresh out of clean MDF because I'm a stickler for quality. These cabinets right here were the Big Buck Hunter and Maximum Force that you would have seen earlier. We put in UV reactive buttons because now the UV light is sitting in. And we converted them, put in new arcade monitors, recut the control panels, cut the T-molding, and put in, these are actually high-quality Japanese sound joysticks. We built this entire control panel, replaced the joysticks because they were terrible. So we spent a lot of time working on taking older games that were just in terrible, terrible condition. And Nando has done a lot of that work. So Nando, tell them about a couple of the skills that you've used as we've repaired a lot of the stuff that we've repaired.
Basically, before I met Mike, a few years ago, I was working with a different game company. Went to conventions and set up games, and we had a bunch of arcade sticks like these. I had a basic knowledge about them, how to put them together. I had a basic knowledge. No, I know that. I had a basic knowledge of how to put the arcade sticks together, and I've been working around them a lot. Well, I met Mike, and he knew I met him through a friend of ours, right? And he basically said, "Hey, Nando, I'm going to Murphy's place. You want to come?" Yeah, sure. So I went to the place, right? And first thing he asked me was, "Hey, I need you to help me out. Arcade sticks. Can you take apart this?" Basically, yeah. Get to work. Shut up. Get to work, and you'll be fine. I'm like, all right, fine. Right, so I took apart this random arcade panel for him, right? And after that, I just kind of, he was always asking me for me to go, and I was there like every single day, and I learned a lot more than what I would have known during my old days of Critical Hit. And I really appreciate everything, that he just helped me out with. So it's always good knowledge, and you can never stop learning things. So yeah.
Take the mic. You didn't drop the mic. You're supposed to drop the mic. That was so impressive. Just play the mic.
So we've used a lot of different skill sets. Soldering, obviously, lots of soldering, lots of wire stuff going on. We've had to change out capacitors, isolation transformers stuff. And I was technical and electronic, and I worked with some really advanced stuff at Rackspace and Hewlett Packard. And there's some stuff that has just frustrated us for weeks as we've dug into some of these older cabinets that Neo Geo. Oh my dear, don't remind me. So next slide. So that's kind of been the arcade space. In the front, we're doing a lot of fun stuff. And this is kind of what came from the original beginnings of Raph. Raph literally had most of this stuff jam-packed in his garage that he would open. You would call him and say, "Hey, I want to buy a game." Open his garage. Literally, you would see all this stuff in the back of the garage. It's super cool. I actually miss it to an extent. I totally would love to put a garage door on the front of our office, kind of like, remember Clerks? And they had remember that New York style kind of gate, like I assure you we're open kind of thing, yeah. So we get a lot of inventory from random places. Right now, a lot of the inventory we're taking is from people who, now that we have a retail space, people are bringing a lot of stuff to us. But at the beginning, we were digging through boxes in Pulgas and flea markets and Bargain Bazaar and Craigslist and my $2 PS2, $2 PS2s. So. And then when you get a lot of that stuff, it's in really bad condition. So there's a lot of skills that we use in repairing some of the older cartridges. Sometimes you find a Nintendo, like a Mario Kart 64 for like $3, but it's broken. And you have to pull out the ROM chips, resolder the ROM chips out, which is worth the value because that game at max value, $50, depending on the title. Now, there is a store recently that opened at the mall. They sell it at about 4 times the price of what the actual games go. We won't talk too much crap, but retro games have gone up in value. Nintendo games, there are certain Nintendo games that are worth over $3,000. Those are very, very rare. We're talking about Nintendo World Championships. It was actually. Has anyone seen The Wizard? Does anyone remember seeing The Wizard with Ben Savage? No one has seen The Wizard with a Power Glove in it. Okay. I love the Power Glove. The Power Glove is bad because it's so bad. Well, that's what he says, because it's so bad. There was an older World Championship that was the Nintendo World Championship that E3 brought back not E3, that Nintendo brought back this year. And what's his name? Ben something won it this year. But they would actually have this international gaming competition via Nintendo, and they made this custom cart, which is called the Nintendo World Championship 90-something series. That card alone is worth like $3,000-$4,000. There's only so many in existence. One is at a retro game shop in New York. A lot of them are featured in game museums. There's a couple other cool ones like Star Fox 2. Anyone ever play Star Fox 1? Yeah, play Star Fox 1? Yeah. There was an unreleased Star Fox that was that the development team got pulled from the Super Nintendo development and put on Nintendo 64, but they were like 80% done with the game. So there was a 80% done Star Fox 2. And they had development prototypes. And I got to see one in California at the convention Kamikaze. But there's some really cool stuff. We generally don't have $3,000 games, but we have some really cool stuff in the back. We've got some original boxes for some of the original consoles. Those generally bring the value up. But it's really fun because we get a lot of people in our doors that used to play a video game when they were young, and just their mom threw their consoles out or threw their games away. My mother literally, my Uncle Kevin had a Star Wars figures collection, and we all know how much those are worth these days. She literally threw about like $12,000 away just into the trash. Oh, okay, cool. This is a box of toys. Let's throw it away. So all my kids' toys, when he's done playing with them, go into like a sealed vacuum bag. And I'm just gonna put them over here. And I'm like, Jason, this is your college fund right here. We're good to go. One of these is gonna go hot. Some of these random Transformers figures are gonna go off. And Amiibos right now, it's a really weird market. The supply and demand for these Nintendo Amiibos, and people are buying them at $15. They're standing in line at like 12 o'clock at night and getting the initial run, and then they're turning around and selling them for $75. Which is this really cool supply and demand story. So next slide. Go ahead. This is just more pictures. One more. So there's my Star Fox example. Some of my favorite games: Pokemon Yellow and Blue. Go ahead. More as we have in the stock. Go ahead. So talking about the makerspace, this is an original Nintendo GameCube controller that we had finished with an automotive paint. Hit the next slide. That's what it looked like in the beginning. This is us disassembling it. Usually when we open these up, they're dirty. So some of this stuff is 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, grimy, dusty. The joysticks are broken. So we take a lot of this stuff and refurbish and fix it to sell for more value. And we get to have a lot of fun because sometimes we paint them, sometimes we mod them, sometimes we put in different joysticks. So go ahead.
At which point is it done?
Yeah, that's a toilet, if you were wondering. That is a toilet, and it'll make sense in a second.
At which point do you decide not to restore and just to...
There's a point that's called beyond economical repair, and it's when it really pisses me off and I don't want to fix it anymore. That's the general. Yeah. At first I'll try, then Nando tries, and if they can't do that, I just throw it away. No, there are some we've had this House of the Dead. We won't give up on this House of the Dead cabinet that we got. We won't give up on it because it's such a fantastic game. But we have logged more than 56 man-hours trying to fix that game, and just the trigger won't work. The triggers will not work, and we are sitting in there tracing lines on the board and trying to replace ROM chips, and it does not want to fix. The wood on a cabinet is always good. Sometimes we do get a cart that's just so damaged, it's so corroded. A lot of those contacts are gold and silver, and they just get so corroded, and you just can't bring them back. It's a lot of fun to try, but we've had some Nintendos that we couldn't bring back. We do a little bit of Nintendo repair. I guess it's just when you get frustrated and you don't want to play with it anymore. That's when you do. So this is my artist trip. You can only see the head. It was not the best picture. Does anyone know what this is going to be? Can anyone guess? Fish tank, toilet. Yeah, that is a toilet, but that's how it started. What is it going to be, though? There you go. Almost got it. Yes. So we Trip laid down insulation foam, just a shit ton of it, just a whole crap ton of it, and basically carved a toilet like the pipe shape. And then he's actually it's in further progress. It's got a coat of plaster on it now, and the plaster is dried. And then we're going to cast it in silicone. And the silicone will give a hard plastic finish. That'll get sanded and painted. And here's where some of the maker stuff was. It has 2 little switches on the front that control the toilet flush, which is anyone from the pipe sound that Mario makes when he goes in the pipe? It goes, toot, 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 right? Yeah. So when you flush the toilet, it's going to go, toot, toot, toot. Ooh. It's going to be a functioning Mario pipe. Like I'm worried that we might have people try to actually warp through the toilet. So I'm going to have to put a warning sign that says, please do not try to go to warp zone 6. It will not work. We've thought of some other fun things to do with it as far as having a high component, like a Raspberry drive, a high score as the longest poop or the longest pee, depending. We have with a motion sensor in the bowl. What we do and what we don't do will be a surprise, but it will be the most technologically advanced toilet in the Rio Grande Valley. I guarantee you. I guarantee it. People will come to the arcade just to pee in the toilet. You find out. There's things. You make it a piranha plant, it steps right up into you. So, it's surprises are waiting, so that's fine. So it's been a fun project. We're definitely enjoying the space because go ahead. We enjoy what we're doing. Here's another example. It's not the best picture I've ever taken of my Vuelix, but this is a custom arcade cabinet that was built from scratch. My 2 arcade sticks are sitting on the top. Usually, this bad boy sits on top of it, but at the time I was trying to make sure that those fit right because it's supposed to be modular. But some of the cabinets we built from scratch, and we drive with either a RetroPie or a PC or a PS3. Next slide. And then we're done. Okay, so switch over to the RetroPie. Now we can go to the fun stuff. We can. I think you just hit source select. Yeah. We in there. Okay. Here, I can close Robert. No need anymore. So these are 2 of the examples of the. Actually, take this one and pass it around. Yeah, we can pass it around. You guys can kind of take a look. It's a standard design. So this is I'm a fan of wood. My grandpa was a constructor. I love the wood. Yes. My grandpa was a woodworker, and I kind of like the natural grains of wood. So when I was looking at, what am I going to make a fight stick out of, I settled on this type of wood, and it's called curly maple, commonly referred to as tiger maple. It is a genetic deformity that happens in maple wood, which causes these tiger stripes, which is why they call it tiger maple. Usually when I get it, it's in a larger sheet, and there's only so much of the sheet that actually has that grain. So we cut that grain out, and that's the stuff, we cut that into planks. These are all Japanese components, so that just kind of compromises the case, and it's a white wood, so it dyes very well. So we use this kind of like a translucent green, blue, orange, purple paints to get them painted. And then inside of it, we've got an Arduino board that, there's 2 Arduinos in this one, actually. There's a PS360, so this is made to be compatible with the various different controllers. It'll work on a 360, a PS3, a Super Nintendo, a Dreamcast. I have some. This one is cool, and I'll show you why when we plug it in. But that's a Japanese Sanwa joystick. Japanese. Wait, these aren't Japanese. These are gamer fingers. Go ahead. Oh. Sure. In parts alone, I think I have $600 just into electronics and parts into this one. That's probably a $300 stick, on a good day, the blue one. But this one was my personal stick, and I put a lot of money into that stick. And one of my favorite things to use the stick with is, who's heard of a Raspberry Pi? And it's pretty big in the maker community, right? So I'm going to kind of show you if I can get this USB plugged in here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is a NERTIC adapter. These are actually really cool. And if we look, well, you didn't see the animation. I'll do it one more time so you can see the animation. So it was funny because Olmo just passed a Facebook link on my page earlier today talking about, LED lighted buttons, and you can use all this. And I was like, yeah, I've already got that. Thank you, guys. So this is, I was like, thanks, Olmo. I've got that. I've had that for weeks and stuff.
You pressed something?
Oh, that's fine. It's probably just launching the game. So this is actually, this board has LED driver boards underneath all of the buttons, and that's controlled by what's called a Kaimana PCB, which runs Python code that actually reacts based on button presses. So it understands which buttons are getting pressed and then lights them appropriately. It's awesome because if you're playing the right game and you do like a Hadouken, which is a Hadouken, it'll actually display an animation of a Hadouken going across. They're fully programmable, so if you can interpret Python code, you can program them to do basically lots of different things. And there's Nando being a better fighter game player than I do. There's random things that, except at Marvel vs. Capcom. Two and one.
No, what did you?
Oh no, I got you at one. He's a bold-faced liar. That's why. So when it idles, it actually goes into an idle animation, and that's the kind of things that you can control with the Kaimana code. So it's probably one of my favorite projects that I've worked on. A nightmare, and I didn't finish it alone. Josh definitely helped, who's another individual that works with us on a daily basis. It's a lot of fun, and the thing I like to use this the most with is big noise. Sorry about that. That was dramatic. Okay, there we go. So this is a Raspberry Pi. Funny story, actually, this Raspberry Pi was 100% free. I sat through 12 Microsoft demos at at Velocity in Cupertino, California. If this stops recording. Yeah, I sat through 12 Microsoft presentations on their terrible product, which is Azure. Because in my background, I work for Hewlett Packard. We have our own public cloud. It's not a terrible platform. It's a good platform, but I'm very HP public cloud centric, and that's one of my babies that I've worked on. So I sat through 12 product demonstrations to win. They were giving away Raspberry Pi 2s they would give 4 away at the end of every presentation. I sat through 12. It was terrible. I was furious by the end of it, but I won 2. I gave another to a friend. And then I picked up the case at the Ubuntu booth. So this is totally free, which I was really happy about because I like not paying money for things. Everybody does, really. So this has been installed with a version of Debian. So all Raspis run some form of Debian. Raspbian is the port of Debian that it's called. But what these developers have done have taken a front end for emulation, right? Because all the stuff that we're doing here is emulation, and they call it Emulation Station, which rhymes, and that's awesome, right? So, so what they've done is they've made a really controllable front end for using your joystick to drive and play games. So we've got some stuff. Anybody here of the Vectrix? No? No one ever had a Vectrix? It was very rare. It is so cool. I'll show you this game right here. Pole position. It was a very popular arcade game at the time. Oh, it's so good. It's if you remember Pong, then you're good. I don't know if I configured this correctly. I think it takes a little bit to load. But yeah, so I've got some really old games on here. I've got some new games on here. So that's for the. What am I doing? Oh, yep. Here we go. Prepare to qualify. This is some high-level graphics right here, guys. This machine originally was it was like a little box, and it would have you wouldn't even be able to play it. Oh, I didn't configure this one. I need the other. Bring me the blue stick back so I can. I hadn't configured this one just yet.
So what do you mean by configuring?
Oh, because we have fun configurations for Linux that allow for things and stuff and things. Anyone watch Walking Dead? Oh, I love Walking Dead. Here we go. Yeah. Oh, that's the good one. Oh, there we go. Now we're racing. Oh, it gets good, dude. Like oh yeah, you go fast. It has like an aspect ratio where you start going faster, and then it's. Oh, now we're really going fast. Okay, woo! We're going real fast. This is why aren't there other cars? Oh, there's the other cars on the road. Oh, legitimately, yeah, and they're generally no. Yep. And then you run into and you blow up. But no, it's a really fun emulation front end. But there's a lot of skills from my Linux background that because I got to say from a hobbyist nature to kind of just buy a Raspberry and download Emulation Station and burn it onto an SD card. It really did take a little bit of high-level Linux knowledge to kind of get everything working the way that I wanted to. So I have every game in the Super Nintendo library, hooked up into this. So the amount of there's more games on this on this RetroPie. So because the SD card in the RetroPie is only 8 gigs, but I have a 2 terabyte hard drive plugged into it, so it can load from the network. You could load an NFS share, which is what I'm going to do with the arcade. Since I want to have so many stations with it, I will literally just have a USB router with the hard drive plugged into it, and then I'll just make an NFS mount, and then the configuration file will point there instead of just having, because I'm not going to buy a 2 terabyte hard drive for each machine. No. Yeah, so, but go ahead. Which one? Go ahead. To install, it's not very hard. You download an image, and then you use one of 2 programs. If you use Windows, you use Win32 disk formatter to put it on. And they're making leaps and bounds. The development team is making leaps and bounds to make it easier for those that aren't Linux qualified every day. The problem is that for a lot of a lot of the intricacies of like when to be able to put the games onto a hard drive, you have to make the Pi user, like you have to modify users so that the Pi user can write to the hard drive and can mount it correctly and map those configuration files. So that's something for like an advanced layer. That's something for like an advanced Linux expert. But there's a project on GitHub that I'm working with right now. It's called Pi Assist. And so it's one program that you install. And a lot of the things that I've had to do manually at the command line, we're trying to bring a GUI wrapper to it in order to simplify it. And it's a fun project to contribute to if there are those that program and like to contribute to that stuff. But underneath it is just a basic Debian Linux command client. So when you have to go in there and figure out what hard drive is, this command runs slow for some weird reason. It's because it requests the bus I/O of the hard drive. But you kind of do have to be able to manage, yeah. You have to be able to have a little bit of Linux knowledge if you want everything to work perfectly. Like you can just kind of throw it together. So like you can see that's my hard drive. And if I wanted to load the, yeah, it's a 2-bar. So I had to go into, in order to edit that file, we have to go into this file, the ES systems config, and basically I have to edit the location right here. I hadn't edited on those because I wasn't using those. But you'll see that like on the Atari links, any of the actual, this is an XML file formatted, so I have to update the link to say media USB 0 Atari links / path so that it understands the configuration. So it's not ready for those who have absolutely no Linux talent, but they're trying to get there. They really are trying to get a GUI wrapper. Like you used to have to manually join Wi-Fi. In the latest release, it's got a GUI client to join the Wi-Fi. You used to have to manually configure the joystick buttons and inputs. Now it has a little like wizard that you can go and configure all the joystick inputs, and it's a lot of fun. It's one of the most fun things in my personal opinion. I've done lots of odd things with Raspberries. For me, it's the most fun that you can do with the Raspberry because we're always we're working and we're playing around and web servers and business proposals and marketing and yada 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 and
I know some of these games they save to the like the PlayStation ones they had a card.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's all digitally emulated. Yeah, that's all digitally emulated. Is your sound right? Because I hope that. Are you sure? Oh, we'll see. Turn it up. Turn it up. Yeah, it's not working. Ooh, okay. So the oddest thing about the this is NetPlay. So let's say that you were playing Super Street Fighter 2 for the Super Nintendo, right? And you wanted, because that didn't have a matchmake. Street Fighter 4 does, right? Like the PS3 version of Street Fighter 4, you can get online, you can matchmake. You can't do that with the original Super Street Fighter 2 on just the Super Nintendo. But since the RetroPie has networking, they have built in added matchmaking features. So you can launch Super Street Fighter 2, and through the actual RetroPie, you can go into a matchmaking system. So a friend of yours could connect to your session, and you can both play Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the Super Nintendo from two different homes over the internet. So that is definitely possible. GoldenEye and Nintendo 64. So emulation is a funny thing. It usually wants 3 to 4 times the processing overhead of the original system to work correctly. Now, a Raspberry 2 has a quad-core processor. It has 1 gigabyte of RAM and whatever storage that you put into the SD card. It doesn't have a horrible amount of processing power. It's a lot better than the Generation 1, but it is still limited in some ways. Like this one is overclocked to mad heck, and I have a lot of the settings fine-tuned to the way that I like them, which is part of where you kind of have to be able to change some configuration files and edit some boot files and stuff like that, which it's a little bit daunting for your initial Linux user, but it's a fun way to learn how to use Linux. And there's like, it's a good carrot and stick scenario, right? Like if I just had to learn Linux because my employer told me to learn Linux, and well, you need to learn Linux. There's no fun in it. But if you're going on a RetroPie project, well, you get to play video games at the end. So that's a good, that's a win-win. But GoldenEye is just one of those systems that the processing architecture is so different from ARM, which is what the Raspberry Pi uses. It doesn't emulate really well. Now on PC, there's a bunch of other platforms that it does, like Nintendo Wii's. It emulates on fantastically because the Nintendo Wii processing architecture is so close to what the original Nintendo 64 was. So that multiplayer, and that has NetPlay as well. So if you wanted to play GoldenEye like Call of Duty back in the of current generation, you can do it, but your max is still the 4 players. There's some fun games, like they've taken classic games like Mario Kart, and they've edited the selectable characters and maps that you can use. And you can't play those on original systems. You can only play those through some emulation systems. Which was? Yeah, Mario Kart's on that one. Just the entire Nintendo library, the Super Nintendo. It's all good. So we've been really making utilization. Olmo knows that my contributions to the Maker thing, I'm dying for a solidified Maker, central space or whatnot. We have the arcade, and as I said, I told the people that were there, we're doing a lot of cool stuff within the walls of the arcade. We're building customs, we're converting old stuff, we're repairing old stuff. We have lots of Maker projects that are going on. We have some, if there's anybody, I am not a Python expert. If there's anybody that is a Python expert that wants to screw around with this Kaimana, you are more than welcome to, because there's some stuff that I just can't do with it. My background, and I've said this, 57 times, is Linux, not programming. And but as I said, there's some cool stuff you can do with Linux, and emulation is definitely one of those fields. So we do have an arcade. Just a couple of details about the arcade. It is a all-access, one-time fee. So it's $5 on the weekdays, it's $7 on the weekends. You come in, it's open from 6 to midnight, and a lot of times we're right there after midnight because we're all night owls. All the video games are on free play. We're not really going with that coin op old kind of thing. It's just you pay $5, you come in. Oh, you're a lame-ass Charlie. Bull crap. Charlie's, he's so salty. He's so salty. I'm salty about Charlie. There's lots of cool stuff that we're doing. We're just getting started, kind of in the space that we're going. It definitely has a retro feel. Why doesn't player one move? I don't know. But we spend a lot of time fixing and messing around with this kind of stuff. But it's a lot of fun. The arcade games that we have out there, a lot of fun, especially if you're into the older retro kind of stuff. There's a lot of technology stuff that we're doing, just period down the end. And I guess that'll wrap me up for the day. Appreciate you guys. We left a flyer and a card if you guys are interested in coming and checking out the space at any time. And I'm usually there. Thank you for your time.